Daniel had always loved the quiet side of nature. While most people enjoyed busy cities, bright lights, and fast-moving crowds, he preferred places where the wind was the loudest sound, and the sky looked endless. That is why he had taken a long trip through the deserts of Arizona. He wanted to capture rare pictures: sunrise on red rocks, shadows spreading over sand hills, and the soft glow that appears only for a few minutes before sunset. These things made him feel alive, and his camera was the best way to hold those moments forever. One warm afternoon, Daniel drove along a dusty road that seemed to stretch into nowhere. The sun was high, the air shimmered with heat, and the desert felt almost empty. He had been driving for hours, stopping only to take photos. The road was narrow and rough, but he didn't mind. He enjoyed being alone out there, far from the noise of daily life. As he took a turn near a large rocky slope, something unusual caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just a shadow, or maybe a piece of cloth stuck on the ground. But something about it felt different. His instincts told him to slow down. Dust rose behind his Jeep as he pressed the brakes. He leaned forward, squinting through the bright sunlight. The shape didn't move. Daniel's heart beat a little faster. It looked like a person. He parked the Jeep on the side and stepped out quickly. The heat hit him like a wall, but he hurried forward anyway. As he got closer, he realized that it truly was someone, a woman lying near the rocks, her body half curled as if she had collapsed from exhaustion. "Hello, can you hear me?" Daniel called out. There was no reply. He knelt beside her and gently touched her shoulder. She moved a little, a weak reaction, but it showed she was still alive. Her clothes were dusty, her hair tangled, and her face looked pale under the bright sun. Daniel could see that she was dehydrated and injured. There was a small cut on her arm, and she seemed extremely tired. He knew immediately that she needed help. "I'm here," he said softly. "I'm going to get you water. Just hold on." He rushed back to his Jeep, grabbed a bottle of water, and returned. The woman opened her eyes slightly when he lifted her head. Her eyes were dark and quiet, filled with a kind of calmness despite her situation. "Drink slowly," he told her as he held the bottle near her lips. She took only a few sips, but even that seemed to help. Her breathing became steadier, though she still looked weak. Daniel looked around. The desert was silent, stretching far in every direction. There was no cell signal, no other cars, nothing. If he left her there, she would not survive. He needed to get her somewhere safe. "Can you stand?" he asked. She shook her head lightly. "All right," he said. "I'll carry you." He lifted her carefully. She was lighter than he expected, but he could feel how fragile she was. Step by step, he brought her to the Jeep and helped her inside. She leaned against the seat, still quiet, but her eyes followed his movements. He felt relieved she was aware enough to understand what was happening. Once he buckled her seatbelt and closed the door gently, he walked around to the driver's side. His heart was still racing, but he tried to focus. The nearest tribal health clinic was almost an hour away. He had visited that area before and remembered it well. It was the only place where he could take her quickly. He started the engine and began driving, careful not to shake the Jeep too much. Every minute felt important. After a few minutes of silence, he heard a soft voice beside him. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "You're safe with me," Daniel replied kindly. "My name is Daniel. What's yours?" She hesitated for a moment, as if choosing her words. "Nita," she said finally. "That's a beautiful name," he said. "Do you know what happened? How did you get out here?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head to look out the window. The desert moved past them, sand, rocks, distant hills, and a soft wind that seemed to follow the Jeep. Nita watched everything with a calm expression, almost as if she understood the land better than anyone else. Daniel didn't push her. He could see she was tired, and he didn't want to bother her with questions. Instead, he focused on driving. The road was long and empty. Sometimes, he looked at her from the corner of his eye to make sure she was still awake. She was quiet, but not frightened. In fact, she seemed more peaceful than he would have expected. After some time, she spoke again. Her voice was soft but steady. "You didn't have to stop," she said. Daniel shook his head gently. "Of course I had to. Anyone would." "No," she replied calmly. "Not everyone." Her words made him think. She was right. Not everyone would stop on a lonely desert road for a stranger. But he couldn't imagine doing anything else. Helping her felt like the only possible choice. They continued driving, and after a while, the small buildings of the tribal clinic appeared in the distance. Daniel felt a sense of relief wash over him. When he stopped in front of the entrance, medical staff hurried toward them. "She needs water and rest," Daniel explained quickly. "I found her collapsed near the rocks." The staff nodded and carefully helped Nita out of the jeep. She looked back at Daniel for a moment. Her eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Then she was guided inside. Daniel stood outside for a moment, catching his breath. The heat, the long drive, the sudden responsibility it all made him feel strangely emotional. But he also felt a strong sense of purpose. He had done the right thing. A nurse came back out and told him she would be okay. She needed rest, fluids, and treatment for minor injuries. Daniel nodded, thankful for the news. He expected that to be the end of it. He would leave after making sure she was safe. But as he turned to walk back to his jeep, the nurse stopped him. "She asked if you could wait for her," the nurse said gently. "She said she has something important for you." Daniel blinked in surprise. "For me? Why?" The nurse shrugged with a small smile. "I don't know." But she spoke clearly. "She wants you to stay." Daniel looked back at the clinic building. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky. The heat slowly softening. He felt a strange pull in his chest, a curiosity mixed with something deeper. "All right," he said slowly. "I'll wait." He didn't know that the decision to wait would change the rest of his journey. He didn't know that the woman he saved had a story, a history, and a gift that he could never have expected. But in that quiet moment, as the desert wind brushed against him, Daniel felt something stir inside him, a feeling that this encounter was not just chance. Something bigger was unfolding, and he waited. Daniel waited outside the clinic as the warm evening air slowly cooled around him. The sky turned soft shades of orange and pink, and long shadows stretched across the ground. The desert had a strange kind of beauty during sunset. Quiet yet full of life. Even though he was tired and dusty from the long day, he didn't feel like leaving. Something inside him told him to stay, just as Nita had asked. He sat on a wooden bench near the entrance and watched people come and go. The tribal health clinic was small, but busy, with friendly faces and calm voices. Some people nodded at him politely, curious about the stranger waiting alone. But no one disturbed him. He thought about the moment he had found Nita. It felt like something from a dream, too sudden, too unexpected. He kept replaying it in his mind. Her weak voice, her quiet eyes, the way she looked at the desert through the jeep window. She had seemed fragile yet strong at the same time. About an hour passed before a nurse stepped outside. "She's awake," she said with a smile. "You can see her now." Daniel stood up quickly and thanked her. His steps felt more careful as he walked inside, unsure what to expect. The air inside the clinic smelled clean and cool. He followed the nurse down a short hallway until they reached a small room. Nita was sitting upright on the bed, wrapped in a light blanket. Her hair was neater. Her face was no longer pale. And she looked much better than when Daniel found her in the desert. But what surprised him was the calm expression on her face, still steady, still peaceful. When she saw Daniel, she gave him a gentle nod. "You came," she said softly. "You asked me to," he replied. She looked down at her hands for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. "I wanted to speak with you. But first, I want to thank you again." "You don't need to thank me," Daniel said quickly. "Anyone would have helped." She lifted her eyes to his with a thoughtful look. "Not everyone stops in the desert. Many people are afraid. Some think the land is empty or dangerous. But you saw me, and you chose to stop." Daniel didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself as someone special. Helping her felt simply human. A tribal staff member entered the room briefly to check her bandages and make sure she was comfortable. When they left, Nita continued speaking. "I want to ask you something," she said. "Do you know this land well?" Daniel shook his head. "Not really. I travel here to take pictures. I love the landscape. But I don't know its history the way the people here do." Nita nodded slowly. "This land is old. It remembers everything. The winds, the seasons, the footsteps of our people. My family. We have lived here for generations. I was walking through a part of the land that many do not visit." Daniel hesitated. "Were you lost?" She shook her head. "Not lost. Just tired. I misjudged the heat. I thought I could reach shelter before sunset, but I didn't." Daniel remembered how weak she had been and felt a small knot in his chest. It could have ended badly if he hadn't passed by at the right moment. Nita could see the worry on his face and gave a small smile. "I'm fine now. Your help reached me at the right time." There was a brief silence, comfortable but filled with unspoken meaning. Daniel looked around the room, noticing the handmade patterns on the blanket and the traditional artwork hanging on the wall. Everything felt deeply connected to culture and history. Nita suddenly reached for a small table beside her bed. On it was a simple leather pouch, neatly tied with a thin woven thread. She held it with care, as if it were more than just an object. "I want to give you this," she said. Daniel blinked in surprise. "What is it?" "A gift," she answered. "A thank you. Something meaningful." He raised his hand slightly. "Nita, I don't need anything. I didn't help you for a reward." Her eyes softened. "I know. That is why you deserve it." She placed the pouch gently in his hands. Daniel felt its weight, not heavy, but not empty either. A natural, earthy scent came from it, like leather warmed by the sun. He loosened the thread carefully and opened it. Inside lay a small stone pendant, shaped with smooth edges. Symbols were carved into the surface, simple, beautiful lines that formed patterns he couldn't understand, yet felt drawn to. The stone had a comforting warmth, even though it had been sitting on the table. Daniel looked up, confused. "This looks important. Are you sure you want me to have this?" Nita nodded. "It was made by someone in my family long ago. It is given to people who show courage, kindness, or a good heart. It is not about the stone itself. It is about the meaning behind it." Daniel hesitated. "I don't know if I deserve something like this." She smiled in a calm, almost knowing way. "You do." Before he could respond, an older man entered the room. His steps were slow, steady, and filled with quiet authority. The staff introduced him as one of the tribal elders. He greeted Daniel respectfully and then looked at the pendant in his hands. "You received a special gift," the elder said. "This is not given often." Daniel could only nod, unsure what to say. The elder continued. "This symbol on the pendant represents clarity, clear mind, clear path, clear purpose. It is a reminder to follow the right direction in life." Daniel gently traced the carved lines with his thumb. The stone felt alive, full of history. "I didn't expect anything like this," he admitted. "I just wanted to help." The elder smiled. "And that is the reason she gave it to you," Nita added softly. "People cross our path for a reason. You appeared when I needed help. Maybe the land wanted you there." Daniel was not a spiritual person, but her words felt warm and strangely familiar. He had always believed that certain moments in life happen for reasons we don't always understand. The elder stepped forward. "If you stay until morning, we will tell you more about this gift. But you don't have to decide now." Daniel looked from the elder to Nita and then to the pendant again. He felt something shift inside him, a quiet sense of connection. Like he had stepped into a story much bigger than himself. Nita's voice was gentle. "If you choose to leave tonight, we will understand. But if you choose to stay, it will mean something." Quote. Daniel realized he didn't want to leave yet. Not out of obligation, but out of curiosity and respect. He wanted to know more about the land, the traditions, and the meaning behind the gift. "I'll stay," he said softly. Nita's eyes brightened with calm satisfaction. "Good. The desert has more to show you." Daniel left the room feeling both settled and unsettled at the same time. The pendant hung in his hand, warm and steady. He didn't understand all of it yet, but he felt its importance. As the night settled over the desert, Daniel knew his journey had changed. Saving Nita had felt simple at first, just helping someone in need. But now it was becoming clear that something deeper was unfolding, something he had not expected, and he was ready to discover it. Daniel stepped outside the clinic with the leather pouch still in his hand. The evening had fully settled in, and the desert sky above him was deep blue, with tiny stars beginning to appear. The air felt cooler now, carrying the soft smell of dry earth and desert shrubs. Everything looked peaceful. Yet inside Daniel's heart, something felt different. The pendant he carried was more than just a small stone, carved with symbols. It felt like a message, something meaningful that he hadn't fully understood yet. He sat down on the same wooden bench outside the clinic where he had waited earlier. The wooden surface felt cool, and the night around him was quiet, except for a few distant sounds, perhaps a car engine far away, or the rustle of wind moving through dry plants. Daniel took the pendant out again and held it under the faint light coming from the clinic windows. The symbols seemed to glow softly. Though he knew it was just the light reflecting on the stone, he remembered the elder's words. It represents clarity, clear mind, clear path, clear purpose. It sounded poetic, maybe even mysterious. Daniel didn't usually think deeply about spiritual things, but something about this moment made him feel thoughtful. He wondered why Nita believed he deserved something so valuable. In his eyes, he had just done a normal human thing. He helped someone who needed help. As he sat there, he noticed a soft sound behind him. When he turned, he saw the elder walking toward him with slow, steady steps. "You are still awake," the elder said kindly. Daniel smiled politely. "I guess I'm still trying to understand all of this." The elder nodded and sat down beside him. "It can feel confusing when something unexpected enters your life." Daniel looked down at the pendant. "It feels important, but I'm not sure why me." The elder studied him for a moment. His eyes were gentle but thoughtful, as if he could see more than what was in front of him. "When people act with kindness without expecting anything, it becomes part of their spirit," he said. "The land notices. People notice. Your actions showed courage and honesty." Daniel listened quietly. He appreciated the elder's words, even if he didn't fully understand everything. The elder continued. "This gift is not about helping someone. It is about the heart behind the help. Many people walk past what they do not want to see. But you stopped. You cared, and that makes a difference." Daniel felt warmth fill his chest, not pride, not excitement, but a simple, steady feeling of being seen. He nodded slowly. The elder smiled. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll explain more." After the elder left, Daniel went to the small guest room the clinic offered him for the night. It wasn't fancy, just a simple bed, a chair, and a window facing the desert, but it felt comfortable. He placed the pendant on the table and lay down. His mind traveled through memories of the day. Finding Nita. Carrying her. Driving through the desert. Receiving the unexpected gift. Eventually, his eyes grew heavy, and he drifted into a calm sleep. The next morning, sunlight gently woke him. The desert outside the window glowed golden, and a soft breeze moved across the open land. Daniel stretched and got ready quickly. After stepping outside, he saw a few people already beginning their routines, sweeping steps, talking quietly, or carrying baskets. Everyone seemed peaceful and grounded. As he walked toward the clinic, he saw Nita standing outside. She looked stronger today, her posture steady and her expression calm. She greeted him with a small smile. "You slept well?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel answered. "I feel rested." She nodded. "Today, I want to show you something." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the elder joined them. He held a walking stick decorated with carved patterns. His expression was warm and welcoming. "We will take a short walk," the elder said. "The land will speak for itself." Daniel followed them as they walked away from the clinic and toward a small path leading into the open desert. The morning air was cool, and the sun felt soft on his skin. The three of them walked in silence, and Daniel noticed how natural it felt. The desert, which often felt empty when he traveled alone, now seemed full of quiet meaning. After a few minutes, they reached a large flat rock beside a cluster of desert plants. The elder and Nita sat down, and Daniel followed. The elder pointed toward the horizon. "This land," he said, "has always been our teacher. It shows us strength, patience, and balance. The pendant you received was shaped from a river stone that traveled through many places before settling here." Daniel looked down at the pendant hanging from its cord. He imagined the stone rolling through water, resting under sunlight, waiting to be carved by someone long ago. "The person who made it," the elder continued, "believed that good actions create pathways. The stone is meant to guide someone whose path is still open." Daniel felt a quiet surprise. "Are you saying this was meant for someone like me?" Nita answered softly. "The land brings people together at the right moment. You appeared exactly when I needed help. Some people call that chance. But for us, it is a sign." Daniel tried to understand. "You mean?" Nita nodded gently. "Maybe. Or maybe you were waiting for it." The idea sounded unusual, yet strangely comforting. Daniel didn't know what his future looked like. He loved taking photos, traveling, seeing new places, but he had never thought about having a deeper purpose or path. Now, listening to them, he wondered if maybe he had been missing something. The elder placed his hand on the rock. "This gift will not give you answers. It will only remind you to look for them yourself." Daniel looked around. The desert stretched wide and open, full of sunlight and possibilities. He felt something shift inside him. A soft change that wasn't dramatic but meaningful. It was like the quiet moment when a camera focuses perfectly. Suddenly everything becomes clear. Nita stood up slowly. "There is one more thing," she said. "The gift also carries trust. I trusted you with it because you showed kindness without asking for anything. That matters." Daniel felt his throat tighten slightly. He had never been thanked like this before. Not in such a deep, thoughtful way. He placed the pendant around his neck carefully. The stone felt cool at first, then warm against his skin. "I promise I'll take care of it," he said sincerely. "And thank you for trusting me." Nita gave a calm smile. "You already earned it." The three of them walked back toward the clinic together. Daniel felt lighter, clearer, almost as if a small puzzle piece had clicked into place inside him. He didn't know exactly what the pendant meant for his future, but he felt ready to find out. As they reached the clinic, Nita stopped and looked at him with gentle eyes. "This is not the end," she said. "This is only the beginning of your journey." Daniel believed her, and he knew that the unexpected gift he had received was far more than a piece of stone. It was a reminder that sometimes life opens new doors when we least expect it, and sometimes the desert gives gifts that change a person forever. Daniel spent the rest of the morning walking around the small community near the clinic. The people greeted him politely, some with gentle smiles, and others with curious glances. He felt like an outsider, yet he didn't feel unwelcome. The place had a quiet rhythm, children helping elders, families preparing meals, and groups sitting together under the shade of wooden structures sharing stories. Everything felt calm and meaningful. He walked slowly, taking pictures here and there, but not too many. He didn't want to disturb anyone. The pendant rested against his chest as he moved, warm from the sun. Every time he felt its weight, he remembered the elder's words. "It will remind you to look for your own answers." He thought about those words again and again. What answers was he supposed to find? What path was he supposed to follow? He didn't have clear plans for his life. He traveled, took photos, shared them online, and moved from place to place. It was a simple life, peaceful but without a deep direction. Now, he wondered if maybe he had been missing something bigger. Nita joined him later in the afternoon. She looked much stronger, her step steady and her eyes brighter. She wore a simple woven band around her wrist, and the colors matched the peacefulness in her expression. "You are learning the land already," she said softly as she approached. Daniel smiled. "I'm trying to understand it," she nodded. "Understanding comes slowly. The land teaches only when the heart is ready." Grode. Cresum. Grode. They walked together without speaking for a few minutes. The sun was warm but gentle, and a light breeze moved across the open ground. Nita led him toward a shaded area where a few people were sitting. They stood when she arrived, smiling warmly at Daniel. "These are storytellers," Nita explained. "They carry history. Today they will share something for you." Daniel felt honored but also nervous. He didn't know what to expect. He sat down on a woven mat while the storytellers settled in around him. One of them, an older woman with long hair tied back neatly, began to speak in a clear, calm voice. She told a story about travelers in the old times, people who crossed deserts, mountains, and rivers. Sometimes these travelers found help from strangers, and sometimes they were the ones who offered help. According to the story, every act of kindness created a connection, like an invisible thread joining two paths. These threads could guide people, protect them, or bring them clarity. Daniel listened carefully, feeling each word settle inside him. The story felt both ancient and familiar, like something he had always known deep down. Another storyteller spoke next, explaining how gifts were given in their culture. A gift was not measured by its size or its cost, but by its meaning. Some gifts carried blessings, some carried lessons, some carried trust, and some carried paths, new directions that only revealed themselves with time. Daniel felt the pendant gently move against his chest, stirred by the breeze. He understood now why everyone spoke about it with such respect. When the storytellers finished, they looked at Daniel with gentle eyes. One of them said, "Your path is open. The gift will help you see where it goes." Daniel thanked them sincerely. He felt a calm warmth spread through him, as if something inside had been waiting for these words. Afterward, he walked with Nita toward the edge of the community. The desert stretched out endlessly, golden in the late afternoon sunlight. The shadows grew longer, and the sky slowly changed its colors. Nita stopped and faced him. "There is something more I want to show you," she said. Daniel nodded, ready for whatever she wanted to share. They walked along a narrow path that led to a gentle slope overlooking a wide valley. From up there, the desert looked like an ocean of sand and stone, with waves of hills and curves shaped by the wind. The view was stunning, quiet, powerful, and full of hidden stories. "This place," Nita said softly, "is where my family comes to think and to find peace. When life feels confusing, we sit here and listen." "Listen to what?" Daniel asked. Nita smiled faintly. "To everything. The wind, the land, our own thoughts." Daniel stood beside her, letting the quiet settle around him. The air felt different here. Lighter, deeper, almost sacred. He could hear the wind brushing against the rocks. He could sense the warmth of the sun on his skin. He could even feel his heartbeat slowing down. For a long moment, they stood without speaking. Then Nita said, "The day you found me, I was walking alone. I wasn't lost, but I needed time to clear my mind. I didn't plan well, and the heat became too much for me. When I collapsed, I thought no one would find me." Daniel looked at her with concern. "I'm just glad I was there." She met his eyes. "So am I. But not only because you helped me. You came at a time when I needed to be reminded that people can still be kind." Daniel felt a soft ache in his chest. "I didn't do anything special." "You did more than you think," she said. "You saw someone who needed help, and you didn't look away. Many people forget to care." Her words stayed with him. He didn't feel like a hero. He had simply acted on instinct. But hearing her say it mattered made him understand that small choices could mean a lot more to someone else. Nita stepped closer and pointed toward the horizon. "You feel connected to nature," she said. "I could see it in your eyes when you carried me. You didn't panic. You looked at the land the way someone looks at a good friend." Daniel smiled gently. "I've always felt peaceful in places like this." "That is your gift," she said. "Not everyone feels that way. You notice things others miss. You capture them in your photos. Maybe the pendant found the right person after all." Daniel looked at the stone again, feeling its smooth surface under his fingers. He wasn't sure where his path would lead, but he felt more open to discovering it. They sat on the rocks as the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon. The sky filled with shades of gold, pink, and purple. The entire valley glowed softly, as if painted by a careful hand. Nita spoke again after a long silence. "You came here searching for photos. But maybe you also came here searching for yourself. The land has a way of showing us who we are." Daniel took a slow breath. I think maybe I needed this more than I realized." She nodded gently. "The desert is honest. It shows what is important." They stayed until the first stars appeared. Daniel felt peaceful. More peaceful than he had been in a long time. His heart felt light. His thoughts clear. Everything around him seemed to speak a soft truth he had never heard before. As they walked back to the community, the elder met them near the path. He looked at Daniel's face and smiled knowingly. "You understand something now," the elder said. "I think I do," Daniel replied. "You are ready," the elder said simply. Daniel didn't know what he was ready for. But he felt it. Too, a quiet confidence, a sense of direction. Even though he didn't yet know the destination. That night, as he lay in the guest room again, he touched the pendant carefully. It felt warm, like the land itself was resting in his hand. He closed his eyes, grateful for everything he had learned that day, and he knew one thing for certain: his journey had changed forever. The next morning arrived with a quiet calm that felt different from all the other days he had spent in that small desert town. The sun rose slowly, touching the edges of the distant mountains with golden light. He woke early, even before his alarm, as if something inside him wanted him to be fully present for every moment of that day. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and let the memories of the previous evening fill his mind once again. The Apache woman's words, her gift, and her smile stayed with him like a warm light that refused to fade. He got ready without rushing. Everything he did felt gentle, thoughtful, almost careful. When he stepped outside, the morning breeze brushed against him, cool and soft. It carried a faint scent from the desert shrubs, something earthy and pure. He breathed it in deeply and felt a sense of peace settle within. The path that led toward the small community where the Apache woman lived was quiet at this time of day. The dust beneath his shoes lifted lightly, rising for a moment before drifting back down. The world felt slow, as if it was waiting along with him. He wasn't entirely sure why he was going back so early, but he felt drawn there. Maybe he hoped to see her again. Maybe he wanted to thank her once more. Or maybe he just wanted to understand what her gift truly meant for his life. When he arrived, the village was only beginning to wake up. A few elders were sitting outside their homes, speaking softly to each other. Some children were sweeping the ground, preparing the open area for the day. A couple of dogs were stretching lazily in the sun. Everything felt peaceful and connected, like each person played a small but meaningful role in the harmony of the place. As he walked further inside, he saw the Apache woman from a distance. She was standing near a small fire pit, holding a woven basket. The sunlight touched her hair gently, and she looked like someone who belonged perfectly to the land around her. As if she was part of the desert itself. Something about her presence always felt calming, steady, and honest. She noticed him approaching and smiled. It was a warm, familiar smile, one that felt like it carried stories. "You came early," she said kindly. "I couldn't stay away," he replied with a small, shy laugh. "I just wanted to thank you again. Last night, it meant more to me than I can say." She nodded with understanding. Sometimes the heart knows when something important has begun. You don't have to explain it. He looked at the basket she was holding. It was beautifully made. with patterns that seemed to move like flowing water. She gently placed it on the ground and invited him to sit with her. He joined her, feeling strangely at ease, as if he had known her longer than just a few days. For a while, they didn't speak. Instead, they watched the fire as it slowly grew warmer. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It felt meaningful, as if it held a quiet message that didn't need words. The wind whispered through the dry grass, brushing past them like a soft breath. After a moment, she finally said, "You saved me that day. You may think it was small or simple, but it wasn't. It changed something. Not just for me, but for you too." He looked into her calm eyes, unsure of what she meant. There was depth behind her words, something he couldn't quite grasp yet. "I didn't expect anything in return," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "That is why the gift came back to you." She reached into the basket and took out a small cloth pouch. It was tied with a thin leather string. She placed it in his hands with great care. "What is this?" he asked, almost whispering. "It's something you should keep with you," she said. "It's not something to use. It's something to remember." He opened the pouch slowly. Inside was a small stone, smooth and round, the color of warm sand. But when he turned it slightly in the sunlight, it shimmered faintly with a soft glow, almost like it held a piece of dawn inside it. "It's beautiful," he said, touched by its simple magic. "This stone," she explained, "was formed in a place our people consider sacred. It represents guidance. When life becomes confusing or difficult, hold it in your hands. It will remind you to listen to your heart and not to fear the paths you cannot see yet." He held the stone carefully, feeling a strange calm spread through him. It wasn't the kind of calm that comes from logic or clear understanding. It was deeper, more like trust. "Why give this to me?" he asked gently. "Because your life is ready to change," she said softly. "And because you opened a door for me when you saved my life. Now, I want to open a door for you." He felt her words sink into him slowly, like warm water soothing tired skin. He didn't know where his life was headed next, but something inside him felt more sure than ever before. They spent the rest of the morning walking together around the edge of the village. She showed him plants that grew quietly but had been used for generations. She explained how her people saw the world not as something to control, but as something to respect and learn from. The way she spoke made everything feel alive, even the stones on the ground and the breeze in the air. He listened closely, absorbing every detail. He felt like he was learning things that could never be found in any book. Things that came from lived experience, from history, and from connection with the land. After some time, she stopped near a tall, old tree whose branches spread wide like open arms. Its shade was cool and welcoming. "This tree," she said, touching the bark with reverence, "is older than our stories can count. My grandmother once told me that when you stand near something older than time, you can feel your own heart more clearly." He placed his hand on the trunk. It felt solid, grounded, and gentle all at once. Standing there, he felt his worries quiet down. Everything that had been confusing or heavy inside him suddenly felt smaller, easier to carry. The Apache woman watched him with a soft expression, as if she already knew what he was feeling. "You see," she said calmly, "your journey doesn't end here. But this place, this moment, will stay with you." He nodded. He understood. As the day slowly passed, he realized something important. Saving her had been an accident of timing, a moment he hadn't planned. But meeting her, learning from her, and receiving her gift felt like something meant to happen, something that had arrived exactly when he needed it most. Before he left, she walked with him back to the path that led out of the village. They stopped there, and she turned to him with a peaceful look. "Wherever you go next," she said, "remember what I told you. Listen to your heart, trust your steps, and keep the stone close." "I will," he said with quiet sincerity. "And one more thing," she added, her eyes warm. "Never forget that even small acts of kindness can bring great changes. What you did for me, will travel farther than you know. He felt a swell of emotion in his chest, gratitude, respect, and something gentle that he couldn't name. They shared one final, meaningful look before he turned and began walking back toward the town. The stone rested safely in his pocket, warm against his leg, almost as if it carried part of the sun with it. As he walked, he felt different, lighter, clearer, and stronger. The desert around him looked the same, but it felt new at the same time, as if he was seeing it with new eyes. Every step felt steady, like he was finally starting to understand not just where he was going, but who he was becoming. He didn't know exactly what waited for him next in life, but he no longer feared the unknown. The gift she had given him was not just a stone. It was direction. It was confidence. It was peace. And with each step, he felt her words echo softly within him, words that would stay with him for the rest of his journey. His life had already changed, and he knew, deeply and surely, that this was only the beginning.